It's now my pleasure to introduce the next 4 scholar presentations. The first session this afternoon from a presenting scholar will be delivered by James Corbett. James's study tour was looking at the future of colony egg production in the UK. He was sponsored by BEMB Trust. James is a managing director of Ridgeway Foods, an egg packer, producer and pullet rearer. The company markets eggs to retail and wholesale customers. The company also has a sister company that produces broilers for a large integrator, giving this a very unique position of being producer in both sectors of the poultry industry. He joined the poultry industry in 2010, after spending 10 years with accountancy firm Deloitte. His scholarship comes at a time when the poultry sector is at a crossroads.
Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I would like to thank the BEMB Trust and the Nuffield Farming Trust for sponsoring me and allowing me to take my Nuffield Scholarship. So, what's happening? Well, the global egg industry is in a significant period of transition. What's more, that transition is happening fast. For the last 40 years, caged and colony egg has been the dominant egg produced and sold across the world. But this is changing. We are seeing a demand for barn and free-range egg, and the UK is no different. In late spring 2016, the major UK retailers announced their decision to stop selling colony egg in 2025. The timing was perfect for a recent application I submitted to Nuffield with a study title of What is the Future of Colony Egg Production in the UK? For the previous 2 years, I'd started to see what was happening across the world. And in some countries, producers were coming out of conventional cages, just like we had to under European rule in 2012. But instead of going into colony production like we did in Europe, some of them were going straight into cage-free. So over a period of 18 months, I travelled to Australia, New Zealand, and America. And I chose those markets because they're very similar to the UK egg market. And I was keen to see how they were dealing with the same issues we were facing. So what is cage-free? Well, actually, it's a very good question. Technically, it's organic, it's free range, it's barn egg. It's all those that do not come from a caged housing system. But there is no one definition of cage-free. And in some places, it's almost been treated as a brand, but one that I don't think customers necessarily understand. As you travel, you see differences in these production systems due to things like geography, climate, and location. And we see that more in stocking densities and range area sizes. But I think what we can say now is when we talk about cage-free, what we're talking about is barn egg production. Now, in barn egg production, the birds can move up and down and from left and to right throughout the multi-tier or flat deck system. But there is no outdoor access. The system is very popular in Europe, with over 26% of European birds in barn egg production, compared to, say, 15% in free range. But previously, barn egg production has never taken off in the UK, so currently we have very few birds in this production system. The speed of the demand for cage-free across the world has meant that equipment manufacturers are still tweaking their designs and still looking for producer feedback. When I travelled, I saw a number of different designs of cage-free, some more intensive, with characteristics of the colony system, others more open, an aviary-style system similar to, akin to, indoor free range here in the UK. But the big difference was with the producers. For the first time ever, they were having to deal with a bird out of a cage, and they were struggling. Increases in seconds from system eggs and floor eggs, a higher cost of production than anticipated, increasing mortality in feed consumption, higher aggression and feather pecking, and the constant challenge of finding labour to work in this new production system. So, is free range the answer? Well, free range is a brand. It is well understood by consumers. It's also not only in eggs, but in chicken meat and pork. The UK egg industry is unique, as 50% of the birds are already in free range. But if we're going to take 16 million colony birds, give or take a chicken or two, and we're going to move those into free range, the UK free range egg industry has got a significant amount of challenges. Now, don't get me wrong, I fully support that they can overcome these challenges, but nevertheless, they need to address them. 16 million colony birds, give or take that chicken I talked about, is going to require a significant amount of land. There will have to be a fair few IPPC environmental permits, and also a significant amount of planning applications. In addition, the increased cost of production to free range will challenge the industry to produce an egg at a value that is attainable to all. Now, many of you know that the biggest threat to the UK poultry industry is that of avian influenza. You will have seen or heard or read previous reports from scholars, and my colleague Dan Roberts is talking about this subject after me. 16 million colony birds taken out of the system and put on the range will substantially increase the risk of AI to the UK industry. The financial and operational disruption that comes about from losing our export status due to this should not be forgotten. And then we come to the issue of fowl-sick land. Now, when I was in Australia and New Zealand, I saw fowl-sick land. Disease built up over continual free-range flocks. We now have fowl-sick land here in the UK, following the expansion in 2009, 2010, and 2011. Producers are starting to see margins erode in these older sites. And in my opinion, it doesn't matter what production system we are in. Within the next 5 years, we will all have to manage birds with a fully tipped beak. Now, those of you in the industry will know that managing a bird with a fully tipped beak is much easier in an indoor environment than in an outdoor environment. And while the breeding companies will help us as much as they can through genetics, it will be down to the producer to manage the bird. And that will be tricky. Finally, we've got to get better at communication around some of the sensitive issues in our industry. Antibiotics in free-range production and feather cover are two of those. Now, intensification produces challenges in any livestock sector. Big is not beautiful, they say. But I have to disagree. And you expect me to, being 6'8". But as you travel, you realise that the UK is a small island. Those of you that have been to America, you'll have seen the big trucks on the road, the big steaks in the restaurants. And trust me, there's some big chicken sheds. Double-decker laying sheds, triple-decker rearing sheds are the norm. But with land being substantially cheaper, you can build these large sites away from residential areas. And with good systems, good procedures, and good people, you can access the operational efficiencies and the low capital build costs to deliver a lower cost of production. Now, in my example, I've talked about the USA, but in other countries, including those in Europe, we are seeing larger sites being built. And the spotlight's not just on the egg industry. Broilers, pigs, and dairy all face the same questions. Now, I have never worked for a retailer, but I would love to have done so. I find them absolutely fascinating. I have been very lucky, however, to work with a number over the years, and with one in a long-term strategic partnership. But right now, when we're at this crossroads of what to do to replace colony egg, we need to work with them very closely to make sure we both deliver the right answer. One thing we do know, we have to produce an egg at a value that is attainable to all. But you only need to look at the retail shelf. The difference between free-range egg and colony egg is very small, much smaller than it was 2, 3, 4 years ago. Yet whichever system we invest in, hundreds of millions of pounds will be spent by the industry, and we have to be able to recover it from the shelf. So, what is the best production system? Well, I left my drum roll at home this afternoon. So to answer the question, well, it depends. And I know some of you are sitting there thinking, well, you're just sitting on the fence. But yes, I am, but I'm not the only one. For each system, there are pros and there are cons. There are advantages and there are disadvantages. There is no perfect system. So just like life, it's about trade-offs. And what we need to do is take those trade-offs with our customers. We need to look at them, we need to analyze them, and we need to list them in priority. Or more bluntly, as an American egg producer said to me, if someone's primary reason to buy eggs is cost, then in effect, they are happy it comes from a more intensive system. Conversely, if someone's main reason for buying eggs is outdoor access, then by effect, they are willing to pay a higher price and increase mortality for those eggs. So some final thoughts. There is no one clear definition of cage-free. And if barn egg production is going to come to the UK, then we need to work with our customers to understand what that looks like. Long-term commitments will be needed, predominantly for our banks. The amount of capital that we will have to raise, it is much more difficult now to do this than it was in 2006 and 2007 when the industry invested in colony. And we must engage with external groups. We must take their concerns and we must feed them into our design stage so that whatever we build, it is not open for challenge on day one. And finally, and most importantly, we must not forget the market. Whatever system we choose, we have to produce an egg at a value that is attainable for all. Thank you.